want that barber. Whoever that barber is.
Ustad Atifa, it won't let me start the recording. If you can do that. And
it is recording on my end, I think.
All right. 1 second.
Mufti Sahib, how's everything?
Alhamdulillah, 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 I'm doing well. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Are you still in Dallas or are you in New York?
No, I'm in New York for this week.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, I'll be back at the end of the week, inshallah.
MashaAllah, excellent, excellent.
Doing exactly opposite of what I'm supposed to be doing, but anyways.
How was the flight? Was it packed, busy, empty?
Southwest is quite nice, mashallah. They keep the middle rows all clear. So it's nice. Southwest is always nice flying, especially when you get like 2 free luggages and the service is quite good. Can't complain about traveling. How about yourself, Mufti Sahib? How's your traveling going? Anything?
I wasn't really traveling that much. I actually did a trip not too long back to Colorado.
I like how Mufti Sahib forgot what he was saying.
I got distracted by this kitten, by these cats. Sheikh, has that cat studied at Qalam? If it hasn't, it needs to leave right now.
This year, this guy's going to be studying.
Man, Sheikh, you got it tamed so well. If my cat, if I grab, it'll just bite my finger.
This guy's extra friendly.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, he's extra friendly. There's 2 more of them here. They're right now walking around my office. They're checking out my books. They're judging me. Trying to figure out what madhab I follow.
First, official alumni retreat in this capacity. So I appreciate you guys joining. Inshallah, the goal obviously is, as many of you know, whether it's Arabic studies or the first year of the seminary program, that you know that the goal is obviously to remain connected, and that your graduation is a formal term for finishing something. But when it comes to seeking knowledge, there is no graduation. It's more so just a reference point. It's almost like just for you to know your time. It's like a birthday. It doesn't end your life. It's just for you to know when every year when your life began, almost like a commemoration. So although, alhamdulillah, those of y'all who are here graduated, you know the value and the importance of maintaining this connection. And you know the value and importance of making sure that you look back at your year or years.
Yard live session, when he was successful in that, there was Sheikh's excitement. I did it!
Ustad Atifa, I think when you leave then it cuts a recording or something. Can you promote me to host?
Yes.
Then I think it'll let it'll allow me to make sure that the recording is still running. Host allows you to record the meeting. All right, that should be good now. Jazakumullah khair. All right, so sorry about the little bit of back and forth, everyone. I hope and pray, inshallah, everyone is doing fine. We're very happy to, alhamdulillah.
How to get involved in the community? Do I just stroll up to the masjid and put my resume down on the desk and say I'm ready to start? Do I do I call the imam and tell them that I'm officially a sheikh now, so they should put me in, coach, I'm ready to play, kind of thing? What do I do? Or do I just sit quietly on the sidelines and wait until somebody taps me on the shoulder? What do I do? And really, the reason why this question is so great is because there's a million different responses, because not everybody is going to have the same approach in community work. There's so many different aspects, and I think I'll start with that answer, and I'll let Ustad Fatima and Ustad Samrina is here as well, and Ustad Atifa here, aka Qalam, she's here. So I will begin by saying that the first thing is that you have to know really who you are, and you have to know before you create this idea in your head about what it is your contribution is going to look like. You have to get really comfortable with knowing what you can offer and who you are and what you are. There are some people who their role, I'll give Mufti Muntasir as an example. Mufti Muntasir is, I remember when he first joined the teachers, staff at the seminary, the seminary instructors group. mashallah, he's a really incredibly talented instructor. For those of you who've had a chance to meet him or hear from him or read his stuff, very knowledgeable, incredibly, just his analytical abilities are amazing, very insightful. And he's really social. He's a really, mashallah, social guy. And I think whenever he does give a lecture or khutbah or anything, he's phenomenal. But he himself views himself as being somebody that's more in the realm of research than in the realm of oration and being an orator, being a
particular session is dedicated for the Alumni students. And so as an alumni discussion, there are some people in here, I see the names like Ustad Sohaib and Sister Sidra and others who, mashallah, have completed the Alumni curriculum that we have. There are some other names in here. I see, mashallah, from Sister Rabia to Kareem and Sister Fusaina and others, mashallah, who are somewhere along the journey of the Alamiya. They've done, 3 years, or they've done completed 4 years, or, they're working their way through the curriculum. But nonetheless, everyone who has participated in Alamiya studies at Qalam, we thought that we could have a little bit of a session together, and we could have some discussions and some conversations. Inshallah, it'll prove to be beneficial. So with that, I'll dispel with the formalities, but just wanted to kind of take an opportunity to welcome everyone and, alhamdulillah, just express my gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to have this gathering, and also my appreciation to the organizers for putting the time and the energy and the effort into this, and all of y'all for attending today, alhamdulillah. So, excuse me. In this particular session, we wanted to have a little bit of a discussion, if you will, that kind of focuses on, community presence and involvement. That was kind of the title of it, but that makes it sound like it's just very specifically and strategically about only community work, when we wanted to kind of open up the discussion conversation a little bit about that. And there were a few suggested conversation topics or discussion points that we wanted to kind of go through in this particular session. I'll get the ball rolling by, handing it off to one of our instructors here to address. The first one was how, if I am a student of knowledge or even a graduate from the 5-year program, or I'm in the course of completing that Alamiya curriculum, how do I figure out what my community needs, and how can I help the ummah at large? How can I be of service? Mufti Kamani, if you could kind of get the conversation started.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So when you enter into a community, the first thing that I would suggest is that don't walk in with the attitude of, I know it all. Be humble. Even if you have experience with communities in the past, because the chances are that every community is a little different. Like every student is a little different. Like every child is a little different. So be mindful of that. The second thing that I would say is spend time studying the community. This is the last batch that graduated this year, Harris's class. We had a little bit of a lunch that one day at the park, and while we were together, we read through the advice of Imam Abu Hanifa to Qadi Abu Yusuf. And when we were reading that wasiyah, the first half of the wasiyah, the second half just got really into marriage and how to deal with your wife and all that stuff. But the first half of it, and Sheikh Abdul Nasser eloquently explained all of it. But the first half of it, he basically was saying to Qadi Abu Yusuf, if I can summarize it in a statement, was study your community. Observe very carefully. look around at who are the seniors in the community, who are the juniors in the community, who are active in the community, who are inactive in the community, look at the leaders of the community, go and sit in the company of the scholars who are already serving in the community, sit with the imams. So there's this thing, right, that I'm not sure if it's a thing anymore, but it was definitely a thing like 8 years ago, 5 years ago, where every time there was a new organization that came into existence, they started off with this big national conference. It was a big bang. Like every organization started with this massive bang where they would say, oh, we have this, star lineup, Sheikh Mikhail, Sheikh Muntasir, Sheikh Abdul Nasser, Ustad Murphy, Sheikh Omar Suleiman. They invited like the superstar team, and that's how they launched their organization. And usually when I advise people who are getting into a community, I tell them, don't start with a bang. Start off slow. Start off in not underperforming where someone can claim that you aren't fulfilling your contract. That obviously is wrong, criminally wrong. Like, don't do that. But at the same time, take it easy. I look at the example, not to call out, but Sheikh Muntasir. I think he's a great example. He joined the ICI community. How long ago was it, Sheikh? 2 years ago?
2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so when you joined ICI community, what was it like for you at the beginning?
Just normal. Just joined in kind of unknown and started doing my work by just working with the community part-time, getting to know the people, obviously under the mashra of the shuyukh and whatnot, but nothing too extraordinary. Didn't get a chance to ceremoniously walk inside with, you said, a big bang.
Yeah, it was very low profile. I recall having conversations with Sheikh Muntasir and him telling me that, actually Imam Kashif, who was the co-imam of Sheikh Muntasir, he actually shared this with me too, because Imam Kashif recently joined the Irving Masjid as well. And Imam Kashif was saying to me that, I walked into the masjid one day and all the Tablighi guys saw me as their representative. So they all crowded around me in the masjid. And I told those guys that don't crowd around me in the masjid. If you want to crowd around me outside the masjid. Inside the masjid, I'm the imam of everyone. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm only available to a group of people who come and crowd around me after every salah. Then I noticed that the Arab crowd tried to do the same. So he said that it took me so long, and Imam Kashif and Sheikh Muntasir, I give both their examples because this is, right in front of us, where they spend the earlier time in their community just studying, a lot of recon, a lot of learning. Now that learning, there are multiple ways of doing it. One way of doing it is just kind of being in the community and letting the education come to you, because people are going to interact with you at some rate, right? Or a way to accelerate it is to engage with the community as much as you can through social gatherings. This is very important. I think like that's where the buck lies with the imam. I don't know if Anwar Imam is here or Sajid is here or anyone from that class. But for those of you that are in that class, you'll know that I actually said this to Anwar in the class in front of everyone, because Anwar is the imam at, what's that masjid called, by South Lake? Colleyville, yeah. He's in Colleyville. And he's there, and I said to him that Anwar, and I said it to him, because I believe they're all in one class. Yeah, I said it to Anwar and Sajid's in another class, but Sajid's classmate, Muhammad al-Sheikh, I said it to them. Actually, they're all together. All three of those are together, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I said to them that in your communities, whether it's Mesquite or Colleyville, you need to be at a party every weekend. That should be your goal. There should be some sort of social gathering every weekend, every other weekend, where you are with your community. Because when you are with people, when you are socializing with people, that's when those very deep, beautiful conversations actually happen. So not to take up the whole part of this conversation, but when someone says to me, how do I figure out what my community needs? The one thought that definitely comes to my mind is studying your community. Don't walk in thinking that you know what the community needs. This is supposed to
I'm enjoying at home, then I get shamed endlessly about not sharing. And then this whole situation unfolds, and I wasn't informed of any of this.
He's actually going to be mailing pancakes to everyone in the school.
I was going to say, jokes on you, Sheikh. I'm in your kitchen. So just come downstairs. Now I'm making breakfast for the kids.
I feel you. Mashallah. Mashallah, very, very beautiful gathering. We have, let's see here. Oh, dear Lord. I just looked at the attendees list. Ya Rab.
Who did you see that made you react that way? Or was it
Youngin? I see him. I see Mahmoudas. MashaAllah. So making dua that one day Khalid learns how to fly. And subhanallah, Muzammil is here. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Ahlan, ahlan. MashaAllah.
Muzammal's here, or is Muzammal in Houston eating another delicious Zabiha burger with Asad? With Asad.
No burgers yet.
No burgers yet.
They made it back to class almost always.
And mashallah, y'all are very blessed. Alhamdulillah, y'all have good blessed company here with Ustad Abdurrahman, Ustad Samrina, Ustad Fatima, Ustad Abdullah. I just wanted to kind of drop in and say salam and let Ustad know that I would appreciate a little, snacks.
Waffles?
Yeah, waffles. Listen, it's always welcome. Waffles are always welcome.
We'll have it with the break.
Time. It's investing in the community at the deepest level, and that's the level of understanding. And so increasing your understanding of the community. Now, I will say this, there will be some overarching things that you want to increase, masjid attendance and program attendance and, there are different metrics that we can set up to see if we're doing well. But generally speaking, every community is just going to be very, very unique, and you're going to have to see what your community's situation is and work according to that. I agree 100% with what Mufti Kamani was saying.
I think one thing I'd like to add is the conversation me and Mufti Saab. Can everybody hear me? It's a conversation I had with Mufti Saab and was it Ustad Abdurrahman the time where we met up recently. It's just, and it's something not. It's more of a perspective on how to give answers to community questions, and less so about more in-depth community training. But it's something that takes a lot of wisdom, and it's something Mufti Kamani mentioned. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. Come here, you. I give salam and then let everybody go.
MashaAllah.
Okay. All right.
MashaAllah. Allah. So
all right.
This is such a quiet class. What happened? Why is everyone's mic dead? Can you guys, on the bottom corner, the unmute? Where's the unmute? Mute, unmute.
Yeah, these guys.
Yeah, everybody's getting
a little salam. Lamis, where? Lamis.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
There we go. Dua. There we go. MashaAllah.
Sorry, I'm driving.
MashaAllah. Look at Sheikh Abdul Nasir. Aha. MashaAllah. There he is. Excellent. Where is our Munib? Sarmad. Munib and Rafi are on different accounts in one chat group. Have you not seen how Ustada Atifa rolls these days at her conferences and classes? I'm done.
So yeah, I think you brought everybody back to life, inshallah. Just one thing I want to mention, it's something that I found very helpful. Unfortunately, I'm very bad at it, but I found it very helpful. Oh my God. It's called baby management. So maybe you can help me out this. Okay. I'm sorry about that. So
if you want to take a break, I can cover. So that
no, it's just one point that I wanted to mention. Nothing too drastic. It's just the idea of. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so while Sheikh Muntasir is looking after Husna, I'll just interject with 3 or 4 points. I'm just going to say them, and I'm going to let the conversation build out. So the first thing I was going to say, and I'm going to ask Sheikh Abdul Nasir to jump in on these points. I'm just going to say 4 points. So the first thing is that as a part of, because the question is, how do I figure out what my community needs? So we talked about studying your community through socializing and being with them. That'll help you out. Now, 4 things I want to say. First thing, always ensure that your community is fulfilling the fard ayn. Don't go into, these obscure things. If the fard ayn is missing in your community, look for that. Study the community. Where are the faraid? Where are the haram? Where are the wajibat? Study the community from that perspective. Second thing is invest in individuals. Don't view success to be based off of lectures. Look for key individuals in your community as a part of your recon of your community. You're studying it and you're looking for key individuals to build on. The third thing is build relationships and strong bonds with your team and your board members. Earn their respect, because you're value in the community is truly based off of how far you can engage your boards and people in your community. And the last thing, and I think this is a very important one, is don't just rely on your education, your ability to deliver, and your ilm. That can only take you so far. The most successful imams I've seen in terms of their reach, obviously success is in the hands of Allah, and Allah knows what success means, but just in terms of their reach, I found to be those imams who can build and establish a solid Ansar team, who have good friends around them, who have good people around them. You know, Sheikh Abdul Nasser had Omar Usman around him. This was like back in the day, you know, solid person who was with Sheikh. And that's just not to cut off everyone else that was there, but Sheikh would agree that was one of the people that was with Sheikh Abdul Nasser from the earlier days. Is that correct, Sheikh?
Absolutely, yeah. Brother Omar Usman and many others, like you said, but yeah, absolutely. Just as an example of one person that many people here are familiar with, that was critical. That was very, very essential in getting things done in those early days.
So these are some points I wanted to put out. I know Sheikh Muntasir was saying something. I jumped in because he had to attend to his daughters. If you want to finish off that point that you're making, then we can leave these points to discuss. If anyone
it's something that me, Mufti Saab, and Ustaz Abdul Rahman were just talking about that time when we met up. And I'll just preface it with an interesting statement. Sheikh Awama mentions the story about Khalid ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, very famous, we all know him, Nahwi. He said that once he met with one of the ulama of his time, and after they parted ways, an attendee over there was asked, what did you take away from their gathering? And the response was, that particular scholar, he says, كَانَ عِلْمُهُ أَكْثَرْ مِنْ عَقْلِهِ. And he says, as opposed to Khalil ibn Ahmad, كَانَ عَقْلُهُ أَكْثَرْ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ. Basically, his aql is much greater than his ilm. And this is something, I'll be honest, I found out the hard way, that when the community comes to us for answers, it's not necessarily the most academically jaw-dropping answer that is most appropriate and ideal. Rather, sometimes that could be the worst answer to give. Giving the most ahkam aqal and the most wise answer is the best way to go about it. So if somebody comes to me in the public and asks a controversial question, asks about something that's extremely difficult to unpack, and I think that I have to be quote unquote academically honest, so I have to give the most academically robust answer. In the process, I've satisfied my ego that I'm not on camera saying something that's not fully, a bit idar udar, but rather I've just left a bunch of people confused and they don't know what to do.
I'm going to do something really, can I do something, Sheikh Muntasir, if I may?
Yeah, tafaddal.
And you guys are all friends, you guys are family, okay? So there's no, I don't need to qualify my statements. This obviously is not intended as an attack or any sort of disrespectful moment. I'm not trying to be just funny here. I'm actually doing this for a reason, if I may. So I'm going to be a community person. I'm going to ask you a question, Sheikh Muntasir. Can you please see, I want to see how you answer it, if I may. And you'll notice that Sheikh Muntasir, actually, I'll let him answer it. Sheikh Muntasir, I've heard the Quran isn't preserved. People have been saying lately that the Quran isn't preserved. There's a lot of discussion out there that the Quran that we have in front of us isn't from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What are your thoughts on that, Imam?
SubhanAllah, I would personally not answer the question if I was in that situation, but the way to answer that
I think that's the way to say it. I was actually hoping that you would say that. That's one way of going around it, right? Yeah. Sheikh, what'd you say?
Yeah.
Or let's see the second part.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, the Quran is completely preserved, and there are certain details that are more for experts. Inshallah, we can discuss that in a more appropriate setting and say that Quran has been preserved over the last 14 centuries, and alhamdulillah, we have scholars who memorize the Quran. We have books that detail all of the variations and everything that needs to be done. In terms of more subtle details, we can inshallah discuss that in a more appropriate setting.
Ahsant. Barakallahu feek, Sheikh. I think that's a beautiful example. Just to extend what Sheikh Muntasir was saying, sometimes we nerds focus on the nerdy element of the discussion, when the truth is that that's not really going to get people into Jannah. That's not going to preserve their iman or help them focus on their iman at the time of their death. It's the messaging and how we convey it. I think that's more important. I say this to people when I'm advising them on marital disputes, that it's not what you're saying, it's how you say it. I mean, and I'm no therapist here. I'm just, I've heard it from people who are wiser than me, and I'm just conveying it, that it's not what you're saying, it's how you say it. So when it comes to
and I was gonna echo your sentiment. Sheikh Muntasir just said this about أعقل وأحكم, بالنسبة إلى as compared to someone who is more أعلم, or someone who is more أحفظ, للأقوال والمتون, and things of that nature. Mufti Kamani and I were just kind of casually having a conversation even yesterday over the phone. We were talking where sometimes there's a phenomena among students of knowledge and even in the community of how many books have you completed and how many books have you read, even if the definition of the books you completed or the books that you read was you're sitting there like this on the other side of like a conference call or a Google live stream or whatever like this, a Zoom call, and there's somebody on the other side going, just to kind of pick up something, and somebody on the other side is going, and the person's just basically doing that, and you're just sitting there on the other side of it, and 18 hours later, you're like, that's it. I have completed this book.
Sheikh, I don't think it's fair that you attack Suhaib like this on a live stream. I think there are limits. It's not Suhaib is,
Someone says, I completed this book. فَصِرْتُ عَالِمًا, right? Address me as Sheikh from now. Like, and there's that. And there's so many examples, and everyone here could probably quote their own example.
I mean, I think it goes back to the biggest thing, probably just saying is, what I think about is just the responsibility of it. And it's something I was talking to my dad about, which is very interesting. And as most of you know, my dad's, been imam his entire life. He's been actually in one community for like close to 30 years, pretty much since I was like 1 or 2 years old. He's been the imam at this one masjid. And it's not like, when people hear that, they think it's like the most ideal situation. But it's, if you were there and if you're part of the community, you've seen people come in and out, but he's kind of still stapled there. And it takes something to be able to do that. And I was having a conversation with him the other day, just about, how grateful I am that I get to teach, right? Like that I have this opportunity, because I know that it's not guaranteed, right? Like I had opportunities to teach before, didn't have it for a little while, have it again, and I know that it can be gone again, right? I don't deserve this. There's so many people out there that are more qualified than me, right? Or might even definitely know way more than me, that could be doing this, but Allah has blessed me with this opportunity, and I understand that. And that responsibility, the responsibility that it brings, that's, as long as that's on me and I feel that, then hopefully I'll be pushed to honor my studies in that way, right? Because if that's always on my mind, like, this is not a right, this is a responsibility. This could be gone tomorrow. If it's gone tomorrow, I'm the one that's missing out. The work doesn't need me. Like, someone else will come in and teach Arabic and they'll get that benefit. It's like classic economics opportunity cost. Like, someone else will have the opportunity to teach and get that reward and benefit people, and I won't have that opportunity. And while I have it, I need to take advantage of every second. And I think for me, that weight of it on my shoulders is what forces me to honor it, right? And for people that know me, like Haris is in here, who's known me forever. I don't know if he's still in here. I'm not necessarily the most motivated person in things in life, but there's a few things. Arabic was one of those, a few other things, and work now is one of those things. Teaching is one of the things that I'm very motivated about, but it's not like a norm in my life to be just super motivated about things and like, get up in the morning, go 5 a.m., go for a run or something. Like, I can't even understand how people do that. Like, that's how hard it is for me. So, but that weight is what forces me to, try to do right by this responsibility.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So ideally for a lot of people, this is like what they want to do in terms of like, for a lifetime. They want their Islamic studies to attribute to their living, and the only way that can happen is if it's kind of associated with a certain income. So the question I have is, how do you navigate the idea where it's like, okay, so at what point should I be you know asking for a certain amount, or like because at some point you have to make a living yourself too, and then and on top of that, in terms of like spirituality, how do we keep our own intentions in check, that we're not doing it because of the income, rather doing it for the sake of Allah, but as we're needing the income to be able to continue that work, I guess. Does my question make sense? I don't know, I kind of said.
It makes sense.
Okay.
I guess I'll go ahead and answer. So one, from I guess my perspective and point of view, I feel like a very important aspect of this question is mentorship, because there are sometimes, like, there's levels, right? There are sometimes where you may be at a certain.
We feel the urge and need in every context to go and share that tidbit that I know. I'm not saying that in certain contexts we shouldn't share it. It's just that in our journey or pursuit of being like academically sound to the teeth, what we end up doing is confusing people more. Yes, if it's like a seminar, or if it's like a weekend class that you're teaching on a subject, فبها ونعمت. But like I said, maybe the shuyukh, and like Mufti, like Sheikh Abdul Nasser said, aqal and a'lam isn't necessarily mean that aqal is lacking ilm and a'lam has ilm. No, aqal has ilm in its proper context and ilm as it ought to have been understood. And a'lam has more like ta'alum, assuming that you understand.
Yeah. Can I add one thing, just practical, while we wait for some more questions? I have a practical example of this. I don't know what the fiqh ruling would be, but you'll see the outcome. 60-year-old man has become Muslim this year. Okay. This was about 5 years ago. Okay. He comes to my masjid regularly. His son is Muslim too. He became Muslim. Elderly African-American man. No connection to Islam before. Okay. He comes to my classes. He comes to halaqah, everything. Ramadan comes around. He realizes what Ramadan is. Okay. Like, oh, I'll be fasting all day. So he goes to me. He's like, he's doing it. He's okay. But then he has a golf tournament that's coming up right in the middle of Ramadan. So he's elderly. So he's like, Sheikh, I got to talk to you. I got a golf tournament coming up.
MashaAllah.
And I'm like, okay. He was like, I can't fast and golf. Right? Now, hold on. So at this point, my mind shifted from a fiqh ruling to saving a man's faith. I don't care about your rulings no more. I'm sorry. I hope that doesn't, please correct me if I say something haram or blasphemous. Astaghfirullah. But in the hierarchy of priorities, I know what's going to happen. I have a Ghalib Ghuman. I have a Mufti Hussein. Stop.
The way you said Ghuman, I thought it was an Arabic word for a moment.
I have a preponderant assumption. So I don't say break your fast. I don't say that. I just say, bro, go do what you gotta do, man. Go, yo. I don't explicitly ever say the words, you can break your fast to go golf. I kid you not. The next year he came, Ramadan, he said, Sheikh, I need to talk to you. I was like, uh-oh. He's like, I can't believe I asked you last year to fast, to break my fast for golfing. I can't believe that. Wow, I can't believe that. And I just smiled. Because now he's, so I don't know the ruling. Does he have to make it up? Wallahu, yeah, that's there. That the fiqh is there. But I got him to the next year and he grew. But now I did not say, go break your fast. That would be, I would worry about that Yawm al-Qiyamah, kind of. You know what I mean? But I don't have to say anything. You get what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's just that right away that it's just be smart and think about priorities and just be careful at the same time. You don't sell your deen. There's something, maybe one of the mashayikh know where this comes from. Ibn Abbas used to say when someone asked him a question, he wouldn't look him in the eye. Now this is heavy to me because, you know, we learned that when you're looking at them in the eye, you're heavily influenced by them. So I see a balance there where it's like, I'm not going to sell out my deen at the same time, but at the same time, I'm looking at priorities here. And so there's a balance there that you just learn over time. So I don't want everyone here to just become so nonchalant. No, come on. Like Mufti Kamani said, haram, haram. We still got to speak it. Fardul ayn, da, 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 da. But aqil a'lam. Please, man, that was beautifully articulated. And I just wanted to give a practical example. That's all.
Mikhail, to kind of like further your point, I also think that goes back to that wisdom that Mufti Kamani was talking about, Sheikh Muntasir referenced as well. It goes back to that wisdom that if, like you said, right, this elderly gentleman who has just accepted Islam in such an elderly age, which is so like unheard of, right? It's very rare. So, and you're sensing that this person might need a little bit of a softer touch and kind of, this is an exceptional situation. But I am a young, fresh graduate. I don't have the expertise. I don't have the experience. I don't have the seniority to kind of take on the fact that I just created such a huge exception to the rule for somebody. Then that goes back to that point of wisdom, ahkam, aqal, that I need to know who I need to refer this person to. That I will say, listen, brother, that's a very good question. Why don't I do this? My teacher, one of the more senior scholars that I refer to, let me give you his number. Let me help put you into contact with him. Let me send a message with both of us on there, and he might be able to better answer your question. See, that goes back to that wisdom. So that the young graduate is not getting into the dangerous area of where there's an explicit ruling in the Sharia and I'm just giving people alternative answers. You know, like, and this all goes back to wisdom. And that's kind of the benefit of this whole thing. There are some questions here, we'll get to those. Yeah, but while we're talking about this is a good segue. The next question was, how do I know if I'm honoring and implementing my studies? How do I know if I am honoring what I have studied and I'm implementing what I have learned? Even very briefly, because there's one more question I want to pose that I think is going to be very beneficial for a lot of our, students here. But just this particular question, how do I know if I'm honoring what I have studied and in my studies in general? Mufti Sir?
Well, I was listening to a lecture by a scholar, I'm forgetting his name, this famous Turkish scholar who does the lectures on Qalam. I posted the video.
Hamza Bakri.
Yeah, Hamza Bakri, and he did this presentation on Sheikh Zahid, Allama Zahid al-Kawthari.
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
It was a small lecture, and in there he talks about how when Sheikh Zahid al-Kawthari would give ijazah to people to narrate from him, he had some very interesting things he would say to them. And I mean, it's interesting. One of the things that he would tell people is that you're not allowed to narrate from jinns, which is so random, so random. When I heard that, I thought to myself, gosh, the norms must have been really weird. You could tell Sheikh Muntasir is dying to say a lot.
Well, in actuality,
I've heard hadith from jinn too. But the other thing that he said, which I also found common in teachers like Sheikh Yunus, rahimahullah, I heard him saying this a lot. Our own teacher, Sheikh Yusuf Mutala, when he gave us ijazah in hadith, he said this. He said, you have ijazah to narrate hadith. And I also heard it from Sheikh Muhammad Awama. Alhamdulillah, I had the honor to take ijazah of hadith from him too. And he also said this. All of them, they said this to us. They said that you have ijazah to narrate hadith from us as long as you act upon the hadith. Like you, tadayyun, and they talked about taqwa and these things. So, the question was, how do I know if I'm honoring and implementing my studies? I think that's where it starts, by living it. With what face do you go and stand in front of people and call them? And I'm going to be really raw for a moment if I could. How could you be standing? How do you even feel comfortable standing on the minbar to give a Jummah khutbah if you haven't prayed Fajr that day? Like, do tawbah to Allah.
Mm.
Ask Allah to protect us from nifaq and hypocrisy. You know, I know it's not good to call out to say this kind of stuff, but really ask yourself, am I a munafiq?
Mm.
That I'm standing on the minbar delivering Jummah when I haven't prayed my Fajr Salah.
Mm.
It's sad, you know, and with what face are we at? Were we standing in front of people? And that's for the brothers. Sisters might feel off the leash because Jummah is, you know, but whatever it is, your khatira, your nasiha that you're giving in your community, how are you standing in front of people and giving them lectures if you're not praying your salah on time?
Mm.
I don't get it. We just finished off a tazkiyah class. Many of you folks were in the tazkiyah class. And the one thing that I just kept emphasizing was as-salatu ala waqtiha, as-salatu ala waqtiha. That's it. This is prayer, prayer, prayer. I said to the students, and Ustad Suhaib is here. He was in the class. Muhammad al-Manim was there. Who else was there? I'm looking around. Rabia was there. And there were others. Probably I'm not seeing their names. But if you there recall, Sidra was there, yeah. Mesa, yeah. You guys remember the one thing I kept saying was that in my books, if you haven't prayed salah in the first 30 minutes of the beginning of the time, that salah is qada on you.
Mm.
Like in my book, it's as if you didn't pray it. If you didn't pray in the first 30 minutes of the waqt. So that I think that's the big thing. I'll share one example. I remember once I was with a particular mufti from the United Kingdom, and we were just talking and chatting, and I said to him that, you know, Mufti Sahab, you talk so much about Islam and you have such great knowledge and good references, and it seems like you're well read, but your external appearance doesn't seem that it has anything to do with Islam. Have you ever considered, you know, changing that just for the sake of the people, even if you don't want it? That, you know, that what's written in the text, at least I live by it to some degree. Without interpreting everything. You can interpret everything, you know. Why am I swearing? Because it's laghu. I'm not actually swearing. It's just laghu language, laghu qalam. That means I can use foul words. That's an argument that could be made for saying foul words, you know. So instead of doing that, so he said something interesting to me. He said to me, Mufti Saab. He said to me in Urdu. He's got a funny little tone too. He goes, Mufti Saab, hamara kaam hai padhana, taqwa aur logon ka kaam hai. Right? So, which is a very ajib statement. Sheikh, how do you translate that?
I don't think I can. I feel like if I say those words, I'm gonna get struck by lightning in broad daylight. But it basically is to say, our job is to share knowledge, and praying and piety is for other people.
Na'udhu billah.
I mean, that just breaks my brain. I don't know what to even think. You know, subhanallah, that's a tragedy. That is a tragedy, and you know, may Allah protect us all. Jazakallah khair. That's very, very beneficial advice about the spirituality of it. That we really have to have this mindset of just being very blameworthy towards ourselves and being very highly critical of ourselves. If we start to get into making excuses for ourselves, there's no one more dangerous than a person who has knowledge. You know, Mufti Sahab talked about foul language. We were just going over the hadith in Bukhari, and I mentioned this to all the students in the class. You know, when Hamza, Sayyidu Shuhada, Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he was in the battlefield of Uhud, and he calls on one of the mushrikun of Makkah, and he calls him,
and said to me, they can say whatever they want to me. I'm not doing it for him, you know. So that ultimately is the standard. That's what we need to reach. Like, we can talk about all these standards and barometers and all this stuff and these checks and balances, but we have to ultimately have that realization at the bottom, which is your risk will come. You just have to keep working. And there's real examples of that. And what will come with the risk, with that kind of risk and that kind of tawakkul, is barakah that you just can't enumerate. Like, you cannot, if you try to start enumerating it, then you probably won't find it, if that makes sense. But it'll come. You just have to keep working. That was really long-winded, but I hope it made some sense.
So we have about 4 minutes. There's one more question that we did not cover. Should we just cover in 4 minutes?
And if there's any other questions anyone has at all, I feel like we.
Okay, so the last question that was there is, how do you overcome imposter?
Sorry, I didn't catch any of that. One more time.
How to overcome imposter?
Ooh, fancy.
How to overcome imposter syndrome?
I actually just wanted to say on this before I feed my kids. Sorry, just wanted you guys to see I'm not just going in and out for no reason. You are an imposter. We're all imposters. Like, we just need to accept it. Allah Ta'ala has given certain people, whether that person is a Sunday school teacher, whether that person runs an after school program, whether that person's an imam, whether that person is, a mufti, that person is trying to somehow stand in the shoes of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's what shook the companions when the Prophet ﷺ died. There were many different emotional responses, but of them all, connected through all of them, was this idea that how on earth are we going to keep this going, right? And so we are all, imposter is a strong word because there's a lot of intentionality behind it. Like, are we intentionally trying to hoodwink people? Are we tricking people? No, but we are not the real deal. You know what I mean? We are people that are trying to do the best with what Allah Ta'ala has facilitated us to have. And that spirit needs to be something that you hold on to forever, that you communicate to everybody that you're teaching, which is, I'm a student. I've, alhamdulillah, Allah allowed me to study for a year, 2 years, however long. I still have my teachers that I constantly go back to and try to ask questions to and get consultation from. But I don't want anyone here to think that I'm like the Grand Mufti of Al-Azhar or something like that, right? So I think owning up to it is like the best way. They say when you're skidding in your car, the best thing is turn into the skid. A lot of times people try to fight imposter syndrome by trying to almost force themselves to become the thing that they think that they're. Don't try that. Just acknowledge your humanity. Acknowledge that I am somebody who has been given this very small skill set, and it's something that I'm working on constantly. And my job is to try to give it to anybody who wants help with it, which is Islam, Islamic studies, Arabic, whatever you want to force it as or put it as. So don't force yourself. Don't become so obsessed with the concept of, I don't feel like I'm the real deal. You're a student. I'm a student. Everyone's a student. Along with that comes la adri. Along with that comes I don't know, etc. So Breakout's going to end in 60 seconds, so I'll stop and let you guys chime in.
I have one more thing to say to that helps in battling imposter syndrome is just make sure you are genuinely you. That's the scarier imposter, is either way when you force it. You try to force being that title that you have, but you're not really that person, or you force trying to be not that thing. That's also a stereotype. That person exists. Oh, I'm not a sheikh. Don't call me that. I'm not this. I'm this. Don't call me that. They just become that thing. Just be you as genuinely as you can, obviously with boundaries, and you don't have to give all of yourself to the public. You can maintain your private life, maintain, boundaries.
Give all of yourself to the public.
Definitely not. But I mean, even your students, I try to be very genuine with all of you, and hopefully that comes across. But there's still aspects of me that I'm different with my friends because I'm closer with them, right? I'm not going to just be I'm not going to cross lines of teacher-student